Hello, my beautiful, gorgeous dancer. Welcome to another episode of More Than Dance. I am your host, Chrissy Filipino, and today we are talking about your comfort zone. Actually, more importantly, we're talking about stepping out of your comfort zone and how to do that. So, one of my favorite books, it's The Little Book of Talent by Daniel Coyle. He goes into a bunch of different descriptions about talent and learning. And one of my favorites is about the zones. So we have three main zones, as he states. In tip number 13, we have our main comfort zone, which you all probably know exactly what that feels like. It's pretty steady. You're not really reaching for too much. Nothing feels really hard or out of reach. You're probably performing at an 80% level or higher. Then you have your sweet spot zone. And the sweet spot is really where the magic happens. We're going to talk about that in more depth in a second. And then there's the survival zone. And I feel like this is what happens with dancers oftentimes is we go from being in our comfort zone, AKA not dancing, and then we jump into a dance class, and because we are full of these ideas of perfection, we end up putting ourselves in survival zone and completely skipping the sweet spot zone. And part of that is because we're not giving ourselves allowances to be less than perfect. And we're living in a survival zone, which means I'm not getting this, I'm not doing this, this is not perfect, I'm not achieving this. And then comparison comes in and you're looking at the next people next to you and you're like, oh my God, they're better. And then you just get into this whole vibe that's like, you're not having fun and you might feel, and you actually might start to build this feeling towards dance or the skill that you're trying to achieve, and it's not good for your learning process. So I don't know if you've watched the show Love on the Spectrum. The coach there, the Jennifer, I forget her name, but she's the expert that they bring in to speak with the kids with autism. And there was this one episode where she was talking to one of the kids and she was saying, okay, we really want to get out of our comfort zone, but we don't want to dangerously get out of our comfort zone. And she drew these circles and I just love it. And I think it's the perfect way to explain your comfort zone. So if you're just listening right now, I want you to just envision this. And if you're watching, then I'm going to kind of like air draw it. So the first circle is here and it's like in the center. Just picture drawing a circle in the middle of your paper. And inside that circle, you're putting comfort zone. And then anything outside of that comfort zone is outside of your comfort zone. So draw another circle outside of your comfort zone circle. And that circle that's going to be a little bit wider in diameter, right? Because it's outside of your comfort zone circle. That is where people end up going, and that's outside of the comfort zone. And what she says in, I forget which episode, but it was so cute. She drew another circle in between those two circles to say, guess what? We can still be outside of our comfort zone, but we don't have to drastically be outside of our comfort zone in order to make progress. So today, I'd like to walk with you through some ideas just to help you to stay in a sweet spot zone and to maybe give yourself some opportunities to recognize when you're in the survival zone and to know how to get out of it and seep back into your sweet spot zone. Because we don't want to be in our comfort zone because then we realize we're not in growth. We're not doing much for ourselves. We're comfortable. We're hitting 80%. We're coasting. We know as humans, we don't want to coast through life. We want to feel like we're headed towards something. We want to feel like we're going towards our goals. So that's why we seek more and we want more things and we go after different types of goals. We want to challenge ourselves. It feels good to challenge. And what's more important is it feels good to accomplish a challenge. How many of you have felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I mean, even me sitting here right now talking to you, I mean, I feel like this is a little bit in my sweet spot because I'm doing a podcast and it's something I've thought about and dreamt about doing for, maybe a decade. So here I am, I'm doing it, I'm in my sweet zone because it feels okay. But maybe if I did it 10 years ago, I would have felt outside of my comfort zone. I would have felt maybe I was in the survival zone. Now, the survival zone is also where you're going to experience anxiety. You're going to experience the feeling of I'm not good enough. You're going to experience the feeling of maybe I'm just a failure. And it's the imposter feeling. It's the I'm not good enough for this. And it doesn't actually give you the feedback loop that we know and we wish to have. So it's actually teaching you that you suck. And we know we don't, like we know, but we can start to believe it based on the feelings that come up when we're in the survival zone. So that's why you want to be very aware when you're learning something new to not step into the survival zone, because you're only going to be teaching yourself and giving yourself that feedback loop of, you're not good enough. You didn't do that right. Look at the other people. They're doing it better than you. And we don't want to do that to ourselves. Why? Why would we do that to ourselves? One, because maybe we think we have to in order to go forward. Two, because we think there's no option. There's no other option. Well, I'm here to tell you that there is another option, and it's finding and understanding your sweet spot zone. So let's talk about what the sweet spot should feel like. The sweet spot, so I'm gonna take this out right from the book so that you can follow along with me if you have this book at home. So the sweet spot, this is Daniel Coyle. He says that the sensations that you're feeling are frustration, difficulty, alertness to errors. You're fully engaged in an intense struggle as if you're stretching with all your might and for a nearly unreachable goal, brushing it with your fingertips and then reaching it again. So it's like if you've ever played basketball before, you can kind of compare this to making a shot and not the next time, and then making a basket, and then maybe this time, like, have you ever like jumped up and tried to like touch the net? Like, you know how that is, like you're like, I'm gonna touch the net, I'm gonna jump up, maybe your fingertip like just touches it. That's staying in your sweet spot. What would be not in your sweet spot I don't know why I'm talking about basketball, but maybe because my Joshie is right behind the camera right now and he loves basketball and he's gonna play it later. So when you're making a basket, every now and again, you feel good. You're like, oh, I got that one. Maybe you missed one. Maybe there was like, not a tackle, but whatever they call it when they block and stuff. That's like you overcoming the challenge, right? Like we need a challenge. Otherwise, what the heck? We're in our comfort zone. We know this. So in dance, it's very much the same thing. However, it's a little harder to discover because dance is ever changing. Dance has, like, it's not just about making a basket or making a goal or making a, touchdown. It's literally executing choreography over the course of, could be 45 seconds, could be a minute and a half. And the parameters that we set for ourselves are this: I'm going to get the dance and I'm going to do it. So if we were to compare that to basketball, that would be like me saying, every shot that you made, you're getting it in. Every block that you're blocking, you blocked. Every run that you ran was taking you to the ball. And every out of bounds situation was you bringing it back into bounds magically for your teammates. Dance is not like that. Dance has so many other variables. Yeah, and also I'm not trying to minimize basketball because I think there's like a lot of other things that are like in basketball, like other techniques and all that stuff. For dance, the execution of the dance is the dance. So we would put this pressure on ourselves to, okay, this 8 count, maybe it has 16 moves in one 8 count. All those should be perfect. All those better be perfect. You better hit them all. You better memorize them all, hit them all, have the styling, have the facial, have the everything for that 8 count times 16 or times whatever, however many 8 counts there are in that routine. It's just not possible. One, because it's being perfect. We know that's not something that we want to attain. Like, why do we want to attain that? That's a whole other podcast episode. But the reason why we think it's possible is because we can see the instructor doing it. We can see that it's a possibility. However, and this is one of my favorite things to do with my students, I'll literally show them 2 complete executions of the dance. And I'm going to say, I'm going to show you two dances right now. I'm going to show you A and I'm going to show you B, and I'm going to ask you about them after. So on one of them, I'll do it full out, full execution, my face, everything, and I'll really try to hit it as close to performance quality. I like to say performance quality over perfection, because we know even when it's performance quality and performance ready, there's still room for error because it's ever moving and it's so fast. And then we've got the variables of the audience and the lights and the cameramen. And there's just so much to account for. So I'll show them option A, and then option B will be the same exact thing, except maybe I'll forget a couple things. Maybe I'll have a get the fuck there moment, where if you've ever taken a dance class with me, you know we talk about the get the fuck there moment, which is you're just gonna get the fuck there. You're not going to think too hard about it. It's like, sometimes I'd have people come to my class and be like, Chrissy, like, just how do you get down to the floor? You just get the fuck down. Like, stop overthinking it. Just get down. And then as you learn that, okay, I need to be down, I need to be up, I need to be facing that way, you're going to get the gist of the dance. The overview of the dance is going to make more sense to you because you're going to be actually getting the fuck there and doing it. It's the same as if I were to give you directions in 1995, I'm assuming, because I know that before then there was no GPS and people literally went to gas stations and were like, oh, how do you get to Okay, you see that sign? You're going to take a left at that sign. Then you're going to go down to Burger King. And when you get to the Burger King, you're going to take the left. That's not the left, but the almost left. And you're going to get down there and you're going to figure out your directions based off of what we call landmarks. Well, dance has landmarks as well. And it's your job as the dancer to understand your landmarks, or as I like to call them, their get the fuck there moments. And these moments are helpful to shape the whole entirety of the routine. And they're also helpful because they can show the movement and break it up into sections. So like from one get the fuck there moment to the next get the fuck there moment, that's one chunk. From that second get the fuck there moment to the other get the fuck there moment, that's your next chunk. And so we get to understand and kind of outline our dance based off of these moments. So in my second iteration, I'm going to show them, maybe I just got the fuck there on a couple of them. Maybe my face was a little blah, blah. Maybe I just like didn't do it as full out, didn't have as much energy. And I'll kind of sculpt the way that I'm doing this based off of certain reasons, like whatever my lesson plan is that day to show them. For instance, if I'm talking about the comfort zone and like survival, right? I want to make sure that I'm showing them that I can still execute this dance amazingly. And that's what's so funny is after I finished routines, I'm like, how were they? Were they okay? And they're like, yeah, they were okay. And I'm like, well, are you sure? Because I forgot the dance like on the second one. And they're literally training themselves to say like, okay, people forget. Okay, we can still make up for it. And then the biggest reminder too is this is in a class. So this is when my students have come to class one night. We're working on one routine that's literally going to go out the window the next day because I have prepared another routine for them. So literally in that moment, the idea of perfection, the idea of performance quality, it's not there. Because to really perform something to its fullest, we would need more hours. We just would. Even the best dancers, they're going to dance longer than 2 hours. I know this. They know this. You listening on the other end, you know this. So why on earth could we think that we could go to a class and hit close to performance quality, which means close to pretty close to perfection? What makes us think that that's a possibility? Because of the person that we're learning it from. Because maybe they had more hours practicing it. Maybe it just is way in their comfort zone. Wouldn't that be logical that would make some sense? That the instructor's comfort zone is your sweet spot? Because otherwise, why are you taking classes from someone who's in your same comfort zone? Actually, I would hope that my survival zone is way different than the students that I'm teaching. And when my classes are too easy for my students, I'm like, oh, you guys need a challenge. And they'll always say that to me too. They'll be like, oh, it's always hard. It's always difficult. It's always this. Yeah, I know. Like, that's strategic. I'm literally making it that way because I know who's in my room. I know what they can do. I know what they're capable of. And I want to challenge them. And I want them to always come to my classes feeling like they're getting challenged, not feeling like things are super easy. Every now and again, like, I'm going to do it. There's going to be moments where I'm giving them something maybe that's choreography easier, memory-wise easier, maybe more in their comfort zone that way. However, my challenges to them in terms of, okay, but where's your face? Okay, but give me more of this. And I have different performance quality, like stylistic things that I'm challenging them with so that maybe, the choreography is a little easier for them than the last night, but they're still challenging themselves in different ways, in different layers of the cake, as we say, because we have 3 layers of cake. We'll talk about that another time. So getting back to these 2 iterations. So again, remember, I'm performing one full out, like really good, as close to that performance quality as I can at the moment, because I'm also like getting it in my body. And then two, the second one is me kind of showing them that it's okay to recognize that it's not completely perfect. I want them to recognize that they get to focus on landmarks. They get to focus on memory within certain chunks. They get to focus on their 8 counts. Maybe the beginning is like really hard for them. Maybe the end is. It doesn't matter. The point is, the dance is not supposed to be one basketball hoop. The dance is the entire game. I don't remember how long basketball games go for, but can you imagine if everything, 4 quarters, can you imagine if everything in that game was to complete perfection? It wouldn't be fun, because it would be predictable. And it would mean that every time you watched someone go for a shot, you wouldn't be questioning and building with anticipation, like, I wonder if they're going to get it. Or when the buzzer was about to ring or alarm, you'd be like, they're going to get it. No, that's not fun. The fun is, oh my gosh, they've got 1 second left. Will they make the buzz? Like, we don't know. We don't know, because there's so much room for error. And I'm thinking that as a basketball player, you know that. I'm sure that they're upset when they miss a basket that they think that they can make. I'm sure, especially those 3-pointers, when they get a foul, I'm sure that when they miss those, they're like, crap. I literally practice those all the time. Like, and they still miss them. And we still find it completely acceptable when they do. Maybe sometimes when the kicker in football misses, it's kind of like, are we serious? But it still happens, and it happens amongst all the teams. And so that means when we take this into dance, we get to remember that dance is not constant. It's always changing. There's always things that are going to be different. So for instance, if we were to find our sweet spot zone in one choreography with one teacher at one studio, the likelihood of being in that exact sweet spot in the next class with that same instructor at the same studio with the same group of people is unlikely. Why? Because there's so many other variables happening. One, the change in song. That's going to be huge. I was just starting to think about like Super Bowls and stuff, because here's another great thing. You know, when they go to Colorado, I feel like every time when they go there, like literally the team that's the away team has to suffer a little bit because they're not used to the altitude. Like, so yeah, maybe they played their team already and they won and maybe it was easy, but just that little shift, that little variable that switches in, it sets them up for a brand new game. So the same thing for us with music, that music that comes in and maybe it's soft, maybe it's asking us to be and portray a different character that we're unfamiliar with. Maybe we have to, suppress something in us. Otherwise we might feel like we're getting too personal with our current situation. See what I mean? There's like so many variables that can change. Maybe you had a bad day. Maybe you had a good day. Maybe, you're tired. Like maybe you're on your period. All these things are going to affect the way that you're learning and thus the way that you're dancing. So next time that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I am just like so not getting it. Are you like trying too hard to get it, when maybe you should be more focused on just being in your sweet spot and loving and appreciating that you found a class that is perfectly challenging for you? Now, on the other hand, being in your survival zone, like in the class always, we don't want to feel like we're always surviving. We want to feel like we're actually able to get into a zone of sweet spot. We want to get into that zone. Why? Because percentage of successful attempts in the sweet spot is 50 to 80%. So we already talked about being in the comfort zone. That's 80% or higher. So that means like you're really just flying by. The sweet spot is 50 to 80%. And then this survival zone is below 50%. So something fun that I like to do with my students is I'll ask them, I'll do a beginning chunk and then I'll do an end chunk sometimes. Everything's different. It's always different, and it's always different on purpose. But I will ask them like how they feel. How do you feel before we move on? Is everyone like 10 is performance ready? So no one should really be there right now because we're not there yet. But where are we at? They'll say 7, they'll say 8, some of them will say 5, 6, and I'll be cool, we're gonna move on. And then we move on, and then like maybe I teach the second half faster. Maybe I teach it with less reps, less drills, less clarification just because of time, usually because of time. And I'll say, how do we feel about this one? And then, if they're giving me 7s and 8s at that point, I'll be like, wow, pretty impressive. But most of the time I'm actually saying this before they say it to me. I'm like, I would expect right now that you guys are 5 and below. And then they're kind of like, oh my God. Like they get the permission because they're like, okay, 5 and below. Good. That's how I am. That's where I am. And that's where she says I should be. Oh, that's good. And that's where everyone else seems to be. They're nodding their heads. Okay, great. They're not experiencing that all class. They're not experiencing that for the whole entirety of their experience at the studio. And the reason why is because I'm teaching them to, in that moment where they do feel their survival zone, the survival zone feelings, which actually let's hear those too, because those are good to hear. I kind of touched on this earlier, but confusion, desperation, you're overmatched, scrambling, thrashing, and guessing. You guess right, but it's mostly luck. So we want to have more certainty. Obviously, that's what's going to contribute to us feeling good. And ultimately, that's what's going to contribute to us doing that thing more and more often and more frequently, more and more often and more frequently. How redundant, but for real. So when we get into, and if you're listening to this and you're a teacher, I challenge you to construct your classes so that they are able to feel these different ranges and start teaching them and getting them to be familiar with, oh, what does it feel like when I'm in my comfort zone? Oh, cool. We did that move. I know that move. Nice. What does it feel like when we're in our sweet spot? Oh, okay. All right. We're doing this. Maybe my endurance is low. Maybe this is, I'm working on this. I'm feeling my energy being like really like used up. I feel myself really trying. And then what does it feel like to be in the survival zone? The survival zone is like, oh, maybe I got to go home. Have you ever heard that from one of your students literally saying like, I almost went home, but I didn't? I hear that sometimes. And it's because they're on the brink of being too long in the survival zone. And so my advice always to my students when they're in their survival zone too long is come up with a different goal, because we already know our goal is not to perform. And perhaps they're living in that goal. So I get to check them sometimes in the class. And you'll know when you're teaching your students, you'll know. And if you're a student yourself, you're going to need to start learning this, because if the teacher's not doing it for you, you're going to need to know, okay, oh my gosh. Like when I'm a student, okay, Chrissy, you're taking this too seriously. Knock it down a notch. Why are you here? You here to have fun? Great. Are you having fun? Cool. Are you not having fun? Why are you not having fun? Because I'm taking this too damn seriously. I'm thinking that I'm about to put this on stage tomorrow. Dumb expectation, because it's not realistic at all. So I get to put myself in check when I'm a student. You get to put yourself in check when you're a student. And when you're a teacher, you get to encourage this putting in check, because you want to make sure that the people in your class know to be like, okay, that's not the expectation. Let me create another one. How fun is it to be able to create another goal or another expectation for yourself that's easier? Oh my gosh, can you imagine at the beginning of the year, you set some goals and expectations for yourself, and then you're like, someone was just like, hey, do you got anything easier than this? And then you're like, easier? Whoa, I thought it should be harder than this. And then you're literally like, I can think of something easier than this. I could definitely, instead of doing, I'm just going to use this because it's easy for people to visualize, but a lot of the times at the beginning of the year, someone might be like, I want to lose 50 pounds. And then that person, that teacher is going to be like, anything easier than that? Oh, they're like, okay, well, maybe 20 pounds. Now that is alleviated and that stress is alleviated. So now they're, instead of being in a burnout survival zone for the whole year, they're going to be in a sweet spot zone, because it's more attainable, it's more realistic, and it's actually going to contribute to more fun for them. So what I want to leave you with today is to understand where you are in your zones when you're learning something new, especially dance. So when you're learning from the beginning, of a routine to the idea of looking at yourself in the moment of the whole scope of your dance journey. Understand, like, okay, am I challenging myself enough? Is this too easy for me? What am I getting out of this? Am I still having fun? Maybe then, okay, your comfort zone is your comfort zone and that's it. Maybe you don't want to grow. I highly doubt that, but maybe you don't want to grow. Your sweet spot. Am I in my sweet spot enough? I don't know. Let's think about it. Are you able to feel those feelings where you're feeling like you're reaching for something and it's just out of grasp? Then you're in your sweet spot zone. Are you feeling like that was easy? You're probably in your comfort zone. These are little questions that you can ask yourself. Do you feel miserable when you're doing the thing that you're doing? You're probably in your survival zone. Do you have a healthy mix of both? I think it's cool to be in your survival zone. I think we need it because remember, contrast is amazing. When you're feeling light and you're feeling dark, it's like, oh, cool. Now I know what dark is. Now I know what light is. Cool. This is what low light looks like. We need that. We need both options. So when you get the opportunity to feel like you're in your sweet spot zone and also in your survival zone, and it kind of like goes back and forth, you know you're setting yourself up for ultimate growth. And you're setting yourself up for the growth that you wish to have. And if you do find yourself in the survival zone really stressing out, that's when you can check yourself, right? Remember we talked about checking yourself. You take yourself out. Maybe you like have to actually like look down at yourself like visually. I don't know how you do it. How I do it, I'm just kind of like, Chrissy, come on. So maybe you're like, okay, come on. Like you got to change the rules for yourself and make it more attainable because that's what's going to make it more fun. And then you're going to see better and more fun results. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Getting out of your comfort zone is a beautiful thing because it usually means that great things are coming for you. It usually means that you have aligned yourself so good with the universe to say, I'm ready. I'm calling more things in. I want more. I want better. And that's fun because guess what? The universe listens and it's going to give you what you want as long as you don't find yourself creating unrealistic expectations for yourself, which would be, okay, I'm ready. I want this. Let me be perfect. Don't do that to yourself. So I hope this was helpful and I will see you on the dance floor.